Welcome to the Ever Evolving Truth. Here we are in our first primetime election coverage. It's kind of exciting, kind of nerve wracking. Just like we got some new faces for you, so I want to ask everybody, just like I've been asking everybody throughout the day, how many of you have started drinking yet? Jordan, I know you don't drinking. Did you start drinking again just for this moment?
No.
Welcome, by the way.
I have not. Thank you.
Jordan's joining us. Alex is joining us. Alex, have you started drinking yet?
Keeping it just the good old H2O for now, but
Okay.
Once the polls close, that's when I feel like it's time to crack one.
Gotcha. Mounts, have you started drinking yet?
No, coffee.
Okay. Trying to stay up for the long haul?
Because if I start drinking, then it'll turn into like a power hour situation. And by the late night thing, my shirt will be off and I'll be...
Yeah. Well, look, I was going to suggest if this starts breaking towards Trump early and there doesn't seem to be a way back, I think we should just turn it into a power hour. Fuck it.
Right.
Okay.
Just explode my liver. And we have Leah here. You've seen her throughout the day. Leah, have you started drinking yet?
Not yet. I'm waiting for the 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock session. I'm
Okay.
going to start then.
I'm on my third stiff drink, but I have not been drinking in between. And I tell you what, it has calmed my nerves a little bit. Okay, so look, it's obviously still very early. These things don't get called until very late, if they get called on the same day. This one, we've been hearing nothing but we probably won't hear anything tonight. However, just both on CNN and MSNBC, they both checked in with key swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio.
Mhm.
And those are the three states that were supposed to take the longest. Oh, I'm sorry, Wisconsin, not Ohio. Those are the three states that are supposed to take the longest. And all of them are reporting that votes are getting counted a lot faster. So I think Pennsylvania, we're going to have 50% of Philadelphia counted
By 11.
by 11, which is great news. Because we won't see that huge Trump lead, which will set everybody into insanity. Wisconsin looks like they're going to have the majority of their votes by late tonight, and same with Michigan. We might actually get a call by as late as 3 a.m. tonight, maybe a little bit earlier. So, what are your thoughts? Does this change anything? Does this change your feeling? Does this change? Trump did say that he was going to announce. If he had a lead, he was going to declare victory. Now he's walked that back. What are your thoughts on this? Let's start with Alex.
Yeah, the results could potentially be all over the place. They could come in sooner than we expect or later than we expect. One thing I've heard in leading up to today, actually, of the prior presidential elections held in this since 2000. Only, I believe, 2 of them were actually called that night of. Election 2000 clearly took a month and change. 2004 was not officially declared until Wednesday or Thursday afterwards. 2008, 2012 were the exceptions, and then 2016 took it another 24, 48 hours before it was officially declared, not projected by a media organization or otherwise.
Right. And Jordan, how about you? Any thoughts on this? What seems to be a sudden change, because up until now we've been hearing for months that this could be very messy. It could be weeks before we get an actual declaration of who could be president. Now we're hearing maybe tonight again.
No, I mean, I think some of that was probably a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say hyperbole, but it's never really, I mean, except for the 2000 decision with the hanging chads in Florida, it's never really been a protracted thing. It's usually within at least 3 to 4 days. And, the types of countings that go on that late are usually never really impact the election that greatly. I mean, that's the thing. It's just all of the trickle of mail-in ballots and the things that they have to count by hand, like emergency provisional ballots and military ballots and things like that. So, I think one of the biggest things tonight that we will just need to see is just some of the returns from the purple / lean red, but could potentially be blue this time. Like particularly, Jeff already mentioned like the Wisconsin, the Minnesota, the Michigan, but I think Georgia and Florida are going to be huge depending on the returns that we see coming in tonight. So
Yeah.
that's really all I'm looking at is just some of the early returns from some of the red states that are becoming more blue. North Carolina also.
Don't forget about Texas. Texas is very much in play.
Yeah.
I said earlier, and I'm going to ask everybody for their bold prediction tonight, because I don't know if you guys are going to be able to join us in the late session or not. But I think you're right, Jordan. I mentioned Florida. I think, first of all, I think Trump, if everything remains the same if everything remains the same, nothing changes. Trump needs Florida and Pennsylvania to win. So even if we don't have an idea of who's going to win Pennsylvania tonight, if they make the call about Florida and it goes to Biden, I don't think Trump can win this election in any way, shape, or form. I don't think there's a path for him. I don't think if he wins, even if he wins Pennsylvania, I think Georgia or Texas is going to go to Biden. I think Arizona is going to go to Biden. And at North Carolina, I don't think Trump is going to hold on to Wisconsin or Michigan. I don't see a way that Trump can win this election without Florida for sure.
Just to piggyback on that, Jeff, real quick. Something to mention to everyone. So for all the ills that people may think about Florida as much of a basket case in a lot of ways, the state may be at least portrayed in the media. How many stories have you ever heard start with the term Florida man? Florida actually does have its ducks in a row when it comes to counting absentee ballots. They started counting their absentee ballots just a couple days ago on Friday. So they've been counting them all through the weekend, and they already have those tallies added up. So we'll have the results in Florida are going to be much more up to date and timely with the absentees plus the day of votes as of today. And also Ohio similarly has a lot of early voting, and they can start counting the ballots earlier than Pennsylvania. We can only start counting them. I think they only started cracking them open this morning, or they will as of 8 p.m. when the polls close. So, piggybacking on what you're saying about Florida, if Florida and Ohio, those are two states that I'm really watching for early tonight, because they will have much more reflective results earlier and sooner than, say, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And, if you're saying Trump can't win without Florida, no Republican has won the White House in 100 plus years without the state of Ohio. So let's lump Ohio in with Florida.
That's true, yeah.
And keep in mind, like, if those two states look like they're going for Biden tonight, it may be a done deal for Donnie Boy. And
we can know that fairly early.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Their results are going to be much sooner. They're not going to be taking a couple more days if it takes it to count mail-in ballots, because Florida already started it on Friday. Ohio's had early voting for a couple weekends and whatnot. So
yeah. Alex, I think your microphone is rubbing against your coat. If you just want to try and pull away from there. I want to talk about Pennsylvania. We've talked about Pennsylvania a lot. A lot of our listeners are from Pennsylvania. We're all from Pennsylvania. We currently live in Pennsylvania. So early on in the segment, I mentioned that I was very excited about how long the lines were, how many people seem to show up. I've been voting in very suburban, between suburban and rural, Pennsylvania for a very long time. It's never taken me more than 5 minutes to vote. It took me an hour and a half. Jordan, it took you over an hour. Alex, I haven't asked you yet. I'll let you mention how long it took you in a second here. Leah, it took you over an hour.
Over 2 hours.
Over 2 hours. Mounts, it didn't take you that long, but it was busy compared to what you were used to. So this was all very exciting to me. However, then I found out that, a lot of, just like every state, a lot of mail-in ballots were requested for Pennsylvania. This is the first time they've extended mail-in voting. People didn't know what to expect, didn't know what to do. And then I learned that a lot of the requested ballots had been returned. They were never received by the people who requested them. So I think a lot of those people ended up going back just having to vote in person. And I noticed personally at my polling place that a lot of people were surrendering their mail-in ballots because they got them too late, or they were asking for provisional ballots. I just wanted to see if anybody else noticed that as well.
I knew someone that had that issue, but that's it.
You didn't notice at your polling place though,
Not that
people
I know.
surrounding, sitting off to the side, signing affidavits, things like that. Anything?
Oh, then actually, yes, I did. I did see. I think they were a couple that were at a table, and I actually let them jump in front of me, and I
Mhm.
didn't know what they were doing. So I guess
Yeah.
that would be it. Yes.
If they were
that
sitting
one.
at a table, they were filling out either a provisional ballot by hand, or they were signing the release to surrender their
Yeah.
mail-in ballot.
So they had to come back to the lady with the name in the books,
Mhm.
and I let them jump in front of me, and they gave her a piece of paper they were filling out.
Right. So that would be them return or signing a paper to release or surrender their mail-in ballot.
Right.
Yeah, there was a few in my my voting station as well. I just assumed they let me to the front of the line because I'm a popular YouTube star. So I assumed that. I mean, the guy that's known me since 8 years old didn't recognize me, but I'm sure everyone else there.
Right. Well, they were
realized
just
it was-
afraid to talk to you.
Yeah, it's Detective Mouse.
Yeah, Jordan, you just got done voting. You ran from your voting place to here, signed on immediately. Did you notice anything unusual as far as how people were voting?
No, not really. I mean, I actually, so the past, I guess, 2 elections, I was voting in Millmont, which is part of Reading, but it's part of Reading 18, and Reading 18 happens to be split into 4 different polling places. So I never waited, say, more than like 6 or 7 minutes. But in October, I moved to Exeter, and I had to vote at the Stonersville social quarters. So that was just new, and I did need to show my ID because it's the first time I was voting
First
there.
time, yeah.
Not a problem, whatever. But it was a solid hour wait, and that was, I got there at like 4:50 because I shot there straight from work. And the line was just as long when I left as it was when I got there. So I wasn't really hearing any whisperings, listening to other people talk about any issues really. And as for the surrendering their mail-in ballot, one person that I saw, because they kept coming out like randomly and saying, is anyone here to surrender their mail-in ballot? And
okay,
one person went in. So I don't think that it was that big of a deal where I was, at least.
I saw at least 4 or 5 between the people in front of me and the people behind me either ask for a provisional or surrender. Now,
Plus yourself.
Plus myself, yeah, I surrendered my mail-in ballot. Alex, how long did you wait in line to vote today?
I waited no time in line today to vote because I took my ballot to a drop box early last week.
Okay, all right,
I did stop by. I did stop by my polling precinct just to get a rough eyeball, just to see what it was looking like. It seemed pretty consistent with other presidential years, just a steady stream of people coming and going. Not a huge line or anything, but it's also a fairly sparse, low populated rural township and whatnot. So
yeah.
I think we only ever get, I think there may be like 1,000 registered voters in the township.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe, and in a presidential year, maybe 600 and change typically vote, 600, 700, something like that, maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
So, so some people, and by people I mean quote unquote experts, are predicting about a 70% turnout for the electorate this year. If that happens, are you guys confident that this swings towards Biden?
I'm still not confident. No.
Leah refuses to believe Biden has a chance until he's sitting in the Oval Office.
I'm protecting my heart. Listen, it's 2020, and I just want to say that I am about to say that I agree with Rick Santorum. Something that he said.
I just
never
threw up
thought
in my
that
mouth
would
a little
happen.
bit.
I know. I never thought that would happen. So I take it as a bad omen. But when he said that he doesn't think that Philadelphia will have 50% by 11, I agree with him. We're in for a really long night. And I just can't allow my heart to be broken again. I can't admit that he even has a chance at this point. I can't.
That's pretty grim.
Yeah, it is.
I'm taking you off the big screen.
Go ahead, please.
See,
Thank you.
I have to make a little counterpoint here, because out of all of the punditry that I've been seeing, no one has mentioned the point that I'm about to make. And that is, a lot of the Republican hope is banking on newly registered Republican voters. They're talking about newly registered Republican voters in Pennsylvania. They're talking about newly registered Republican voters in Florida, and the numbers are considerably higher. But what I don't hear anyone saying about those statistics about newly registered Republican voters is the fact that, guess what? They can register Republican, but that doesn't mean they're voting Republican.
There's no voting history on them.
There's no
That's the
voting
point.
history on these people. And a prime example, one of my best college buddies, his dad is, I don't know him too well personally, but first-time voter, 63 years old, blue collar, from a red area of Pennsylvania, and he voted for Biden. And, I think that is happening across the sphere. Now, what I can say is, like, collectively, and when you think about it in like a psychological way, or just a way that you would do something like this, you can be a life can never have voted before, and yet still ascribe to one party or the other. And I can guarantee you most people are not going to register to the party they don't ascribe to. But I can guarantee you that the vast majority of people who have been motivated to vote in this election for the first time are going to vote for Biden.
So that's
I
so
could definitely see that.
I saw a bunch of young kids. That was one thing I was going to mention is I don't know if I just got older and everyone just looks younger than me, or if I'm really, but there were, I mean young. Like these kids were definitely 18. Like they didn't even look old enough to vote. Now it could be that I'm older, so everybody looks younger, but you usually see a predominantly like 35 to 75, right? Voting. And it was more younger people. So that's an interesting thought. And I've heard about the registered Republicans too, that there was a jump in them. So, but there's no way to know how they're going to vote. That's a really good point, Jordan.
Yeah, and they're kind of isolated to the states that Jordan made, like Florida. The Biden campaign just admitted that they lost some time due to the virus. They were being responsible. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign was, knocking on doors, coughing in people's faces, registering them to vote. That doesn't mean they're going to show up, and it doesn't mean they're going to vote for, who they're supposed to vote for, if you will. So, all good points. It's going to be interesting to see for sure. I just don't think, based on, and let's not forget about the 2018 midterms. It seems like it was 10 years ago, but it was 2 years ago that Democrats outperformed, Republicans in all the areas that Trump beat Hillary, like crushed Hillary. They made up ground in all of those categories, all those demographics, and won by 10 million votes more than Republicans. So it's like, we can't forget about that. Trump has lost a lot of voters. So is it enough to offset? Let's say every single newly registered Republican voter votes for Donald Trump. Is that enough to offset how many voters he lost? I don't know. It would certainly make the election closer, but I don't know if it's enough.
I can say for a fact that the Robizonia age was probably average, would be closer to 75.
I was going to say another 4 years older.
It was like there was more of those push buggy stools in the voting area than young people. But I just checked the maps, Leah. We're still safe. There's no still too close to call.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and Fox News.
They've already called it.
Yeah, Fox News already called it.
Yeah. Fox News called it 2 weeks ago.
So, well, actually, it's interesting. Let's talk about it. I mean, obviously, it's still very early, but polls did close in Kentucky, and is it New Hampshire mounts, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so not that these are going to go blue, but there's some interesting things that we can talk about as the results start to come in, which I don't know if they've started yet, mounts or not. You can check on that. But counties that went blue, like whatever county Louisville, Kentucky's in, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Obama carried that part of the state by like 50 points or 30, like something ridiculous. and then Hillary only won it by like 10 points. So if we start to see these early results come in, and counties that are blue and always go blue start to widen that gap again, and some of the rural counties that Trump won by like 60 or 70 points are tightening, do you guys think that that is any indication for A, the whole country, or B, at least the surrounding states, like a Cincinnati, Ohio, or the southwestern part of Pennsylvania that tends to be mostly red, and Trump carried by huge numbers in 2016. Do you guys think that that's any sort of indicator early on?
I don't. I don't see how anywhere in Kentucky can be any kind of indicator. I just really don't. It's always going to be red, even if it is.
Well, we're not talking about it going blue in any way, shape, or form. We're talking about the gaps. If he starts to narrow those gaps, that I believe that could be an indicator as to what happens in other suburban areas. And again, you're widening the gap in the blue areas. Now we can start to see Biden take back Michigan, take back Wisconsin, take back Pennsylvania, take back Florida, right? I mean, that's my take on it.
Well, some people, just a quick refresher for everyone. Donald Trump won 4 years ago on a razor thin margin spread out across a handful of states. And that was because from 2012 to 2016, comparatively, turnout was down about 10% nationally. And that's why Donald Trump was able to win the presidency, mind you, lose the popular vote, but win in the Electoral College with fewer votes than Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama by nationally in 2012. So it's sheer turnout. And what you're pointing to, Jeff, there may be some potential there. I tell people a lot of times, if Hillary Clinton could have potentially won Pennsylvania 4 years ago had she not lost more rural areas if she would have lost them by 5 to 7 points instead of 7 to 11 points, she could have won. I mean, it's the phrase is like, I mean, there is a bit of a mentality out there, maybe you're not going to win those areas outright. You're not going to flip a red southwestern PA county or something like that. But you got to, quote, lose less. That's all what it comes down to. You got to lose less in some areas and drive out turnout in the more populous blue parts of the states, like Philadelphia and the surrounding suburban counties and stuff like that. And that across a number of states. I mean, we're talking Donald Trump won by less than 100,000 votes spread out across the Rust Belt. And I can tell you, Jordan was talking about a friend in family who has family out in the western part of the state and, never voted before, never would have thought to, registered, this, that, or whatever. I have a friend who's from Michigan, and his parents are, still live out there in the state. He lives in upstate New York now, but he told me how his parents just 4 years ago, they just could not vote for Hillary. So they just left the presidential spot blank on the ballot. And along with about 100,000 other voters in the state of Michigan, did the same thing. And the margin of victory for Trump in Michigan was about 18,000 or less. So, I mean, we're talking like just slight shifts here and there, a little bit more turnout here, a little bit there. People actually fill out the whole ballot, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of potential, like it could break a million ways for one candidate or another and stuff like that. But yeah, if Biden, quote unquote, if he loses less in parts of various states, he can win these states much more. He can win them outright, comparatively to what Hillary did 4 years ago. And, don't doubt the chicanery and whatnot out there, the chicanery factor. But yeah, just a little bit more can tip a lot of scales.
Yeah.
In your opinion, do you think that people are more likely to vote for Biden than they were to Hillary? Do you think he's likable?
In my completely unscientific polling research and what I've witnessed out and about, yes, I do.
Okay, good.
I've seen that. I mean, I'll tell you straight up, just in all my travels everywhere I drive around, and I don't just stick to one or two roads and out there, but empirically, I just see more Biden signs than I ever did Hillary signs. I mean, there were more just homemade Trump signs 4 years ago than there were even Hillary signs. Just the homemade, like, I'm just going to go out there and slaughter some paint on some plywood kind of stuff. So yeah, no, there's definitely more support for Biden than there was Hillary. And yeah, Biden is just, he's a bit more likable, and that may make all the difference in just a handful of key areas and key states to tip it all his way.
I hope you're right.
Well, that was a great point. Some early exit polling was coming in on CNN, and they were kind of looking at, are you voting for somebody or are you voting against somebody, right? And early on in this election process, you look at people that were already committed to voting for Biden. A lot of them were saying, a big percentage of them were saying, I'm voting against Trump, not for Biden. Right. To the tune of, I think it was under 50% were voting for Biden. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But right now, they're showing, and again, it's early, these polls, but they're showing 62% of Democrats are voting for Biden, and only 32% are voting against Trump. So what that is telling the quote unquote experts is that he's won some people over the past 4 or 5 months, through the debates, through his campaigning, so he's not losing enthusiasm, or he's gaining people's trust. He's doing that, and that can be significant if it stays. And certainly anybody watching live right now, if you want to chime in, let us know. We can give you the link. You can hop on with us or talk about it in the comments. Please feel free to do so, and maybe we'll feature your comment. The other thing I wanted to mention, you guys, I'm sure have heard leading up to the election, you've heard Trump talk about how he wasn't going. There's a potential for him to declare himself the winner prematurely tonight before all the votes are counted. Now he's walked that back.
How has he walked it back? What did he say?
He said there's no need to play games. He's not going to declare victory tonight prematurely. So that's what he said. There's also reports saying that he doesn't have a concession speech or a victory speech written. He's superstitious. Even in 2016, he refused to look at his victory speech, even when it was pretty clear that he was going to win. So he's walked these back. Now, my question is, do you think that this signifies that maybe he's the reality setting in and that he is going to concede properly if he loses and agree to a peaceful transition?
No. No.
Jordan shaking his head. Go ahead. I'm interested in your thoughts here.
No, it's. I mean, at this point, without going in too much into detail, it's like it's against the nature of his personality, right? I mean, we've talked. I mean, I was on a previous episode where we kind of talked about what would be considered like a comorbidity, right? An actual clinical diagnosis, and it just. Him being able to admit defeat, unless it is so stunningly, scathingly indictment of him, and that kind of just leads me. There is one thing that we can see from the early, like with Kentucky being one of the early states to count their votes and close their polls, is that if Amy McGrath can come close to Mitch McConnell. I mean, if God knows, if she actually beats McConnell, Kentucky could stay red, but that would be a scathing indictment of Trumpism that his crony, his number one crony in the Senate, gets up unseated, is like huge. So I think looking at the McGrath-McConnell race in Kentucky, Jeff, what you were saying about kind of like narrow, like and what Alex was saying, like losing less or like narrowing the margins of victory in like some of the more suburban and rural counties, like that could be a good predictor because that's a statewide race by like the popular vote. That's not like an electoral thing. So like if she can,
what would you consider close?
Close?
What would you consider
I
close?
think that's a good thing to look at.
2 or 3 points. Okay, so that's really close because I think 3 months ago when McConnell was just being roasted, when he earned his nickname, Moscow Mitch. The polls were really narrow. He's kind of widened his gap again. Like I think 538 has him at like a 93% chance to win. So I don't know how close she can get, but I was just thinking like is like 10 points, like because he's won re-election there by what, like 60 points every 6 years? Like it's ridiculous.
and unopposed. He's not usually primaried. I mean, this is a guy that's sitting pretty. So
Yeah.
And it's early now, but McGrath has McGrath up right now. But that's one of
Probably because Louisville's coming in first.
yeah.
and,
How many
no, not
increases
yet.
reporting?
There's only 10 or so. Most of them are red. Frankfurt. I'm sorry. Hold on. Quit it. That was just my son. No.
Kicked him, right?
He's learning to talk.
Yeah, that's how he talks. Anderson County and Fayette County are the ones that came in heavy. Louisville hasn't reported yet.
Okay.
But I mean, there's and this is, I mean, that's CNN, so that's probably liberal news. But
Right, they
But
add extra
without
votes.
Fayetteville or
Right.
without
Louisville and
Louisville.
Biden's winning real early now, but 55 to 43%. So
Oh God, I'm gonna go vomit. I'll be back. Now
Fox News has Biden at 0. No, I didn't look at Fox. Biden's at 0% right now. Nobody's
Right.
voting for him anywhere.
It's interesting how fast this is going to change, though. Again, nobody's expecting Kentucky to vote,
No.
turn Biden. But those, I'm curious, what cities? Because I don't know Kentucky geography. I know like Louisville, and that's it. What I would assume that if those counties are blue and they stay blue, there's some sort of major city.
Yeah, I would have to look into
those,
that.
in those counties.
And to be fair, looking into it, when I checked right before I was about to tell you, like the numbers were completely reversed. Trump was at 70. So, it's so early that it's going to be changing.
It's going to change dramatically every 10 minutes. Yeah.
When I looked, and I just 2 minutes before I looked, it was Trump was at 70-30, and McConnell was up pretty much the same. But
yeah,
now
so I mean, so the votes are coming in. So we're gonna know things every 15 minutes or so. We'll have an update, and then the next round of polls to close are important states. It's Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
It's Virginia, which we know is going to go blue, I believe. It's
Florida
closes at 7 o'clock. We're going to have quick results there. So this is going to start to get pretty intense. Now I'm curious, Mounts, were you able to find a 2016 map and look at those same counties and see where they ended up?
Yeah, let me look. You can talk. I'll come back to I have a map up. I just have to take a look. I'll pop in every 40 seconds or so with the new information. Just really keep us up to date.
So I wanted to ask everybody, like, with the other than Pennsylvania, it seems, and maybe Pennsylvania will surprise us. Most of this mail-in voting has gone off pretty smoothly, I think, across the country. I mean, a lot of states were already doing it, of course, but some states that expanded it, added early voting. Do we think that this is here to stay? Like, this isn't going to go away 4 years from now, I hope. But do we think that it's going to stay?
I hope so, and I think it needs to be like nationwide. I'm a firm believer that at least for elections like this, federal elections, that it should be a federal law. We should all vote the same way. And I think mail-in voting makes the most sense. Mail-in voting or early voting. I think every state should have both. It should not be one day. It's ridiculous that it's one day, I think.
Yeah.
It's archaic. There's too many people. You can't do it in one day. You just can't.
I agree. Even if you made it a national holiday, that would make it even harder.
Right.
If you're like, well, you have the day off, you can vote today, but it's got to be today.
It has to be
now.
today.
Now everybody's off at work. They're going to all show up. So I like the idea of early voting. I mean, I'm fine with mail voting, but there's something about pulling the lever. You know what I mean? Or pushing the button. So I would be the person that went 2 weeks ahead of time and voted. Like, I don't need the debates to make up my mind.
Yeah, I don't either.
And I wish more Americans were like that. I wish more Americans would go back and look. And most of these people have a history. Like, even Donald Trump wasn't a politician beforehand, but he kind of was. Like, every major corporation in business lobbies and donates money and has their mitts in politics in some way, shape, or form. So to think that he didn't have his preferences and to think you can't piece together some sort of record to know how he's going to govern the country is just a complete complete ignoramus. So I wish more Americans would make their decision early on. Like, nothing, like Donald Trump has not changed who he is as a person since the day he was fucking born.
Right.
You know, and neither has Joe Biden, other than like a few policy. Like he's always been a decent, empathetic human being, and other than admitted mistakes, where he's recently admitted that the crime bill was a big mistake, which I have more respect for him now. I'm more excited to vote for him because he was able to admit that. He's not out there defending it.
Right.
Other than like minor things like that, where they admit that they're wrong or make a change on. You know, or evolve on certain things, you don't really change as a human being all that much.
Yeah.
So early voting I think is so important. And let's get rid of these fucking debates.
Or make them true debates, like you and Sterner said. Like you cannot answer a complex question about the economy or healthcare in 2 minutes. You can't do it, and it needs to be more of a more of a real debate, or more town halls. Bring back the town halls. Like let people ask them questions. Like that's the kind of shit we need.
Yeah.
And I know with COVID it would have been hard, but you couldn't figure out a way with today's technology to do some town halls. You could have done that.
Look, the NBA puts people on big screens. You know, WWE puts people on big screens.
Yeah.
That's a way to do it. You know, just the moderator, the candidate, and a bunch of big screen TVs with hooked up to a PA system with voice capabilities, and then you do it that way. There's no excuse not to have those things for the people to ask questions, and I think we definitely of all the things we need to reform in this country, debate reform is one of them. I ask this all the time. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen the show The Newsroom?
I haven't.
It's Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin's a brilliant writer.
So
Jeff
good. Daniels,
seeing him in that role he was brilliant. Such a great cast, and it was only on for 3 seasons, I believe. But it's a cool concept because they use real news events that happened, prior to the show taking place, obviously. But they create the story around these real news events, so that's interesting because you're like, oh, I remember that. Oh, yeah, of course, I was there for that. I remember how the news was reported, and they essentially have this coming to Jesus moment where. All these people involved want to report the news in an ethical and responsible way and change the way the news is reported and show that, look, it doesn't have to be primetime entertainment and you can still be successful. But one of the episodes or a storyline in I think the second season is they want to try and get a presidential debate. And they do this. They come up with this format that's going to hold the people accountable and push them on certain topics and call out their bullshit. And essentially, the debate commission was like, "Nah, we don't want to do this."
Really?
So it's like it's probably never going to happen. But if you watch the show, if you're interested in politics, Leah, you would love the show.
Love it.
Watch it and specifically look for that. That episode, because I just think that would be a much better way to educate the electorate. And I forget who said it, but an educated electorate is the most important asset to a democracy. So
That's true.
I think.
Go ahead, George.
Go ahead, Alex.
All right, cool, man. So yeah, hey Jeff. By the way, I also watched the newsroom. I know exactly what you're referring to, and just not to be a complete dork about it all, but they were actually trying to get a primary debate, not a general debate.
You're right.
Which I would love to. I just wanted to add on top of that. And I'm very happy that you brought up that example. One thing that I would love to see change in the whole presidential election cycle, the way it all works, is not so much for the general debates. That's not the issue, but with the primary debates. The primary debates were the only debates that were allowed to take place were ones that were officially sanctioned and hosted by a cable news channel for the most part, or like PBS had one. I think ABC News did one, things like that. But if they're always hosted by the CNN crew, or the nighttime MSNBC lineup, stuff like that, whatever happened to the League of Women Voters hosting a debate? And
that's a good point. Yeah.
Or the Sierra Club, or the NRA, or any other group. Like, why is it only CNN is the host of the debate, and it's only the typical talking heads that you would see on cable news, which, by the way, they kind of know where they all stand on a lot of stuff overall and whatnot. And they're not the only ones that are allowed. That, like, essentially candidates were told, if you want to do debates outside of the structured format as put forth by the party in agreement with the news channels, that's fine. But then you don't get to be in the actual debates when we're on national television then. So if 5 of you want to go break off and go do your own debate, have at it. But you won't be on the next 10 that are on national television. And that's unfortunately the rub of it. And that's why they keep people, and that's how they're able to keep an iron fist on it. And that's a big issue that the DNC has to loosen up the reins with in general. I mean, they need to get, like, I'm sorry, but I don't need to hear Wolf Blitzer, Rachel Maddow, and something like that. Like, I get it. Give me some more, like, broaden it up.
Policy. Yeah.
I always thought like Jon Stewart being a moderator would be great.
Oh my God.
Just bring in like a
Bill Maher.
Just like a complete, out of left field. You're gonna have to deal with a comedian.
I wanted old school Colbert to do a Republican primary.
Yeah, he will.
Yes.
That would have been so great. I mean, he's a brilliant mind in general. As well as we heard. Jordan, you had something to say too, right?
Yeah, I was gonna go in a completely different vein than what Alex said, but that's really interesting. What he just said too. But what I consider to be more important and relevant to the discussion of presidential or primary debates is the FCC regulations regarding political speech. That's something that needs to be changed way more than the debate rules. For any listener who is not aware of this, basically the politicians that run this country oversee the FCC, and the FCC has this regulation, and you can look it up, that you cannot air anything on a commercial or anything in public view, in the public realm, that misrepresents fact, right? So like Colgate can't run an advertisement campaign and say, you should buy Colgate because the people who own Crest support abortion, right?
Okay.
They can't do that. You cannot just make something up or skew or spin something and get away with it. It would fall under very clear libel, slander, defamation, like lawsuits, like legal issues.
Okay.
However, the FCC guidelines, which were drawn by politicians' legislative aides, clearly state that anything relating to a politician or political race or party does not have to meet those same standards. So they're basically saying any company, organization, individual can't say whatever they want to say. They will be held to the standards of laws of this country, except for politicians.
Except for the people that are in charge of those laws. That is insanity. I can't believe. Yeah. So I was about to ask you when you were going, how did Donald Trump get away with lying 26 times that I was able to prove were lies? That's how he gets away with what he does, because he can. And the FCC doesn't even do anything to shut him up.
Because they can't.
There's no time. They can't even get the rules of a debate to allow the people to mute them if they don't answer the question or they deflect. That's why this is linked in with debate etiquette. Because if you actually if you went to an academic debate and you tried to deflect and not answer the question, you would lose so horribly. That's the point of academic debate, is to make a point, is to beat your opponent on merit and fact and everything. But that's the problem with politics, is they are not held to the standard of truth. I mean, these are the people who are supposed to be running our country and that we are supposed to trust inherently with our lives.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you think about it, politicians, all they're doing is jockeying for money. But at the end of the day, once that money that they're jockeying for trickles down, it is our livelihoods at stake, right? Healthcare, criminal justice reform, all that stuff, it's all money. But people are at the end of that. And politicians should not be able to get away with just being able to blatantly lie, misconstrue, and mislead people of any people, right? Because you don't know, and especially because of Citizens United, you don't know who's in their back pocket. You don't know why they're slanting the truth or skewing the truth. That's the
I
biggest issue.
and I
Yeah, and
always
I
thought
think, well,
money in
first of all,
politics was. It's
well,
not. It's this. This is worse, I think. Don't you?
well, it goes together. Money in politics. That's Citizens United allows
Yeah.
corporations to donate endless amounts of money to super PACs and not have to show. The super PACs don't have to really show where it comes from. Uh, so they're connected. The first step is we have to get Citizens United overturned so
Mhm.
that politicians aren't playing to where the money's coming from, which is large corporations and billionaires. And then once they don't care about that anymore, the only way for them to win is to appeal to the majority of the population, and the majority of the population is going to be what's donating their, to their campaign funds. All of a sudden, now they have to start telling the truth. Because
Yeah.
if you look at Mitch McConnell, he can lie all he wants. He's never held accountable because he has unlimited funding from the Koch brothers and every other billionaire. 98% of the billionaires out there. He doesn't give a shit about small donors.
It doesn't matter. They legally can't hold him accountable for it. Like that's
right.
why they're
I'm
getting
saying
away with it.
If you get rid of money if you get the money out of politics through Citizens United, all of a sudden now you'll have support for. Now all of a sudden you'll have a politician from one side or the other saying, "Look, we got to change these rules because here are the rules." Right now, Jordan's telling me the rule, but why is there not? Why isn't Joe Biden screaming from the rooftops? Well, he takes corporate money too.
Yeah.
He benefits from Citizens United too. So why aren't these other politicians saying, like, look, we got to change this rule so that our candidates, like Jordan said, have to prove their points on merit, not lies. And all of a sudden, without the money in politics, I believe you might have a chance at some reputable, honest politicians coming to power and trying to change that rule.
It's interesting because Bernie Sanders did not run a hate campaign, and he doesn't. He's against Citizens United. I wonder but at the same time, I didn't hear him standing up saying that this rule needed to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. That's interesting. It blew my mind. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this is where I'm kind of weird because I am a registered Republican, but Jeff and everybody else knows that I'm very progressive. But this is also where I am of a very different mindset than a lot of people, because this is where my Republican libertarianism comes out, and it says things that agencies like the FCC. And this is one of the biggest reasons why agencies like the FCC should not be run by the government. They should not have political appointees. They should be independent, nonprofit, bipartisan agencies that receive government funding, but then once that funding is distributed, have no attachment to either political party of the way it's spent or disseminated or the rules that they create.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's almost like a government outsourcing. Like all the government does is give them their money to function and say, we have this function that needs to be met. And you guys have to meet that. And as long as you do that, you'll continue to get funding. But there's a lot of things that, that's where like you could kind of say it's government, but it's not government. But like, that's where a lot of these things are. It's like the politician shouldn't be able to control the agency that tells them that they can lie and get away with it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But at the same time, and this is going to take us off on a little bit of a tangent, but don't you think that like with the internet, they're not controlled by the FCC? And look what happens there. It's almost a free-for-all. Would that happen too without the FCC? If they were a private entity, there wouldn't be enough regulation, I think.
So the FCC actually loosened their restrictions on that recently. Remember when we had the podcast about the sex trafficking issues?
Yes, yeah.
And we talked about that one specific bit of legislation that made it the responsibility of web hosters about what is being hosted on their website and how it was actually bad for that.
Yeah.
It's that. It's like the same thing, right? They have the ability to hold these companies accountable, but they won't. And that's because politicians say that they shouldn't have to.
They shouldn't. Yeah.
Because those politicians benefit from the proliferation of misleading lies on those platforms.
Right.
Yeah. For anybody just joining us, Jordan brought up a great point about we got into we kind of deviated from our topic and started talking about debates, which is an important discussion. And he brought up the fact that the debate, the candidates and the debate themselves are held to a different standards than the advertisers that advertise on the debate. So the advertisers can't lie. Just to kind of paraphrase and simplify it, the advertisers can't lie. They're not allowed to lie. They're not allowed to, slander or anything like that. But the candidates can get away with it and not do anything, and they can't be held accountable for that. So we were just discussing how ridiculous that is. So as always, Jordan has this ability to, and let me tell you this too. Jordan is the type of Republican that I can get along with. Now, obviously, he's voting Democrat. He makes it very clear. The people that say that they're a progressive, they're Republican, but they're progressive socially, conservative financially, and that's why they vote for Republican. I hate that. Jordan is like a true conservative Republican, where he has realized and acknowledged the fact that not only are Republicans, the current Republican Party, not socially progressive, but they're also horrible at spending our money.
Yeah.
They're terrible. Like, we are $3 trillion a deficit now because of the Republican Party. How is that financially conservative?
I had no idea that you were a
ridiculous.
Republican. I'm shocked by that, actually. I didn't think he was a Republican. I'm
No,
surprised.
I'm really
did.
not.
Right.
I mean, I haven't updated my registration in years because it really doesn't matter, because most primaries are kind of useless, when you look at it that way. But I've always been of the mindset, and this is more libertarian than Republican, but I've always been on the mindset that certain functions of the government shouldn't be done by the government. They should be funded by the
I
government.
agree.
They should be fully and unequivocally funded by the government, but they should be done by impartial, like contracted nonprofit agencies. Because then the government should be oversight, not the person
Control.
that does it. They should oversight it, make sure that money is every penny is pinched, every person is ethical, and all that kind of stuff. The behemoth that the current government is, there's nothing like that. Like, and this is a complete aside, but I think it was a number of years. It was longer ago, back when I was in college, so maybe like 15 years ago now. But they did a study of a government agency, and they looked at changing the font of the paper of what they printed, right? And they changed it from a certain font size 12 to another font size 11. And just that agency saved $11 million a year in printing costs.
Oh
because
my
of
God.
that subtle change. Now, when you extrapolate that to something like the DOD, who is getting $800 billion a year, fraud, waste, and abuse is horrendous.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest problems in government. And we're getting completely away from the election here. But
well, but to your point, like, I feel like there would be some common ground if people on both sides were able to admit certain facts, like me being very progressive, Leah being very progressive. I could get on board with those points that you're making, Jordan, in the sense that I am 1,000% for universal health care. But that doesn't mean I don't have my worries that the whoever's in charge is going to politicize it and fuck it up. Look at the VA. The VA provides great service when you can get it. And we argue over this politically. So like you're saying, Jordan, if there was a government funded 100%, but someone else to manage it so that no one can politicize it, the VA would work much better. I could totally have that discussion with somebody who was fearful of universal health care. Or funding the VA, staffing the VA correctly, but what it is just a complete failure to acknowledge that most people want universal health care, and most people would benefit from universal health care. They refuse to acknowledge that point, so we can't even have the discussion that you brought up, unfortunately, which is, that's the country we live in. Listen,
and just to
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Alex. I was going to shift to something else. I want you to get.
Yeah, no, just to combine both Jordan's points and your points, what you're talking about with Jordan saying how the government should fund and underwrite stuff, but not actually oversee it, control every last aspect of it. And Jeff, what you're saying with healthcare, that's one of the reasons I'm for a Canadian style single payer healthcare system, not a British style single healthcare system, where in England what they have is all the doctors, all the nurses, everyone, you're a government employee. Whereas in Canada, you're not. The government is the insurance company, like we have with Medicare for senior citizens, or Medicaid with lower income individuals. But in Canada, the doctors and everyone, they're not government employees. They can be private, they can be as part of a larger hospital or network or whatever, just like in America, but the insurance itself is underwritten by and paid for by the government through our taxes and things like that. Not to pay and not put everyone on a government payroll outright. So you still have competition and market forces working within that space, but you also get everyone included and gets health insurance, and therefore can see a doctor, whether it be private practice or whatever, all that.
Yeah.
So that's just something that people need to keep in mind. There's multiple different ways of getting to universal coverage. And whatnot.
And there is a very close to a best of both worlds.
Yep.
You still got capitalism, and you're still not playing with people's lives. You're just
exactly
not, using their health as a way to make billions and trillions of dollars.
Right.
So I want to shift real quick because we're getting to a point where the second round, the second set of polls have closed. So I want to go to Mounts to see if there's any sort of updates from at least the first set. But I want to shift quickly, talk about the Senate races, because we talked about this on an earlier segment earlier today, where Biden wins the presidency, we don't take back the Senate. We're kind of just sitting around twiddling our thumbs. There's not a whole lot to do that we can do. He's going to be blocked at every single street corner. Every little thing he tries to do that would benefit everybody, he's going to be blocked because Republicans don't want him to look good. So we have to take back the Senate just as much as we need to take back the presidency here. There's 10 to 12, if not more, 10 to 12 Senate seats. The way it needs now, in order for us to have a majority right now as it sits, if Donald Trump wins the presidency and Mike Pence is a tiebreaker, we need to flip 4 Senate seats. However, the big issue here is right off the bat, we're going to lose Alabama. We have to assume that. So that makes it 5 if Donald Trump wins the presidency, in order for us to block legislation. Because otherwise, if we only win 4, we're a dead tie, 50-50, and Mike Pence is the tiebreaker. So I wanted to ask some of the new faces here, what Senate seat, and it doesn't have to be on that list necessarily, but what Senate seat do you want to see most flipped? And then also, while you're on screen, you might as well tell us which one you think has the best chance to flip. Because there are like Colorado, Cory Gardner doesn't look like he's going to hold his seat. Martha McSally doesn't look like she's going to hold her seat. Even Susan Collins, it looks like she's going to.
God, I hope so. I hope she
But let's start with, let's go back to Alex. What Senate seat do you want to see most flipped?
Oh man, that's a tricky question. There's just so many to pick from.
Right?
so many options.
I mean,
name a senator.
as of right now, I'd say the most likely Senate seat to flip is probably Cory Gardner in Colorado. Former Governor John Hickenlooper is probably going to take that one. If you had to say the next one after that, probably be Susan Collins is going to get her butt handed to her in Maine.
You think so? Because 538 has that pretty close. It has 58% going towards the challenger, which is
I'm confident that Sarah Gideon's going to beat Susan Collins. Okay. But to answer your question, I got to say, I'd love to see everyone we mentioned earlier, Mitch McConnell, of course, but Lindsey Graham. Yes, I would love to see Lindsey Graham vacate stage left. But I will say the number one Senate race that I'm watching this cycle is Montana.
Yes,
Montana right now,
that's an interesting one.
Steve Bullock, he's the sitting 2-term governor of the state of Montana. He actually ran for president. He was one of the many also ran this.
And he ran on climate change specifically, right? Was that him?
No, that was the governor of Washington.
Okay,
Jay Inslee, he was actually my number one pick in the primary.
Yeah, he was great. Both of them are good. I like Steve Bullock.
But Steve Bullock, he's running, and he also beyond being a 2-term governor, he was also he was a 2-term attorney general in the state before becoming governor. He has a lot of great name ID. He won re-election for his second term as governor in 2016. he won re-election in a year. He won by about 7 points for governor race, whereas Trump won the state of Montana by about 20. So, if anybody can split some tickets and end up winning statewide, even if Trump wins the state at the presidential level, I think Steve Bullock could definitely flip a seat for the Democrats.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Montana is such an interesting state because we think of it as a red state, but
a lot more purple than people would believe.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We could probably do a half hour on Montana alone. But Jordan, what about you? What are we all? Maybe we can shorten this a little bit. Just all agree that we fucking hate Lindsey Graham and not only exit stage lefts, but gets like the old cartoon boot off the stage.
The long hook.
Yeah.
The long hook. You just yank him.
Yep.
Give him some whiplash.
First, I want to just say to any viewers that I'm a very progressive, and I kind of look at political attachments kind of like a sliding scale, where you can be on one side for one issue, on one side for the other. So when I say like my Republican side, like I'm not saying I'm a Republican in any way, shape, or form. I'm still registered Republican because of when I registered when I first voted in 2008. I registered as a libertarian. And I registered Republican because I was like, well, I need to vote in the primaries if I'm going to be voting for libertarian candidates. So I just never changed it because I don't care. But no, I agree. I think I can't wait to see Susan Collins get the boot. Lindsey Graham is one of the worst human beings on the face of this planet when it comes to seeing how far anyone can get their ass up Donald Trump's ass or their nose up Donald Trump's ass. But the one that I'm incredibly invested in, and it's because I really, really love the challenger, is the race between in Georgia, David Perdue versus John Ossoff.
I don't know much about this one.
Oh my God, this David Perdue, he's the one of the senators that was caught up in the insider trading scandal surrounding the early days of the COVID COVID pandemic. Also, the same one that it was Bill Burr, wherever he was from, that whole thing, it was insider trading. There was like 11 Republican senators and House members that were caught up into it. But he's also played some incredibly horrible, dirty tactics against John Ossoff to the extent, and there's a great Now This video that came out, I think like 3 or 4 days ago, that goes over everything that David Perdue has done. But one of the most evil things that I've seen a politician do recently is that Perdue's campaign extended the length of Ossoff's nose.
Oh, that's
my
one.
God.
Okay. Yes, I saw that.
Because Ossoff is Jewish.
Jesus
and
Christ.
I would love to see that piece of shit be beaten by John Ossoff. And Ossoff is very young and he's very, very intelligent and smart. He runs his own it's some type of internet company kind of thing. And I just want to see Perdue. I want to see him stomped on, just absolutely stomped on. He's a disgusting human being.
I want to change my vote. That's the one.
I think, do we all want to change our vote after hearing that?
Right.
Wow. Yeah, that's and look, here I go now, not being any objective in any sort of way. This David Perdue guy supports 100% Donald Trump. If you support Donald Trump, you are enabling people like him and Donald Trump to do these horrible things. It should automatically disqualify you from holding public office, but it doesn't. Same thing with Roy Moore. This dude is a credible pedophile and doing horrible things, and proven horrible things, and people still voted for him.
Hey, if you get banned from the mall for hitting on too many teenagers, I think you should be banned from running for public office.
Exactly. Like if I got banned from the Berkshire Mall for hitting on the high school girls there, I probably shouldn't be running for office. I probably shouldn't be allowed to be running for office. It's so, and there's horrible people on the left too, but I've never heard of someone from the left extending somebody's nose for a political ad. I mean, it's horrible. I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Like you can't even imagine that happening, but here it is. It has.
The worst thing I think before was in the 2000 election when George H.W. Bush called out McCain in the primaries for his daughter. He shamed him for having a daughter. They tried to insinuate that it was his biological daughter, but they had adopted her.
It was even worse than that, Leah. It was a whisper campaign on robocalls saying, "Hey, did you know
That's
John
what it
McCain
was,
may have
yeah.
a black love child from outside of wedlock?" When in
Jesus
reality, I mean, George W. Bush, he never even actually said John McCain has a love child of any sort like that. He never said it himself. It was a whisper campaign that they ran on him during the primary in South Carolina, and no, it was. John McCain and his wife adopted a girl from like Malawi or something like that.
Yeah, their youngest daughter they had adopted, and she is brown skinned.
It was a horrible, dirty, no good tactic.
Yeah, and they brought the kids in, and I think up until this thing, what Purdue did, I think that was the worst thing that has ever been done, and both times Republicans, just keep that in mind, people. I mean, obviously, we're not the left doesn't do that. There's something to be said about we go high, we do.
And we also get high. Why is it, just a question that popped in my mind. Why is it that on things like this, we can't come to an agreement? Like, why can't both sides say, you know what, this is kind of shitty?
Because icky people are icky. You know what I mean? Like, some people are just icky, and those people are going to exist.
I guess I'm trying to play a page out of Stirner's book. He never tries to paint a broad stroke. Unless it's Antifa, then he paints a broad stroke. But everybody else, he tries to, like, Trump support, like, all Trump supporters aren't bad because you can't, group them all. But again, if all Trump supporters support Trump and Trump supports these people that are doing horrible things, how are they not all bad? Like, if they can't agree that these are horrible tactics, instead they try to defend them or say, but Obama, but Hillary, why can't we come to an agreement here? Like at least we're not going to agree on any of the issues, but why can't we agree that this is horrible? And in this case, this guy shouldn't be leading in any way, shape, or form.
I don't know why we can't agree.
It's because the news has become weaponized psychological warfare.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they you hear people, I hate to use this analogy, because I'm in a social work field, but they say, about the woman in an abusive relationship, like, why don't they just leave? Well, everyone who supports Trump, like, that's what this is.
It's an abusive relationship.
The news has been just like, the person whispering in their ear, like, oh, it's not that bad, or oh, this will change, or all that. Like, Fox News is a propaganda machine, and propaganda works on psychologically based ways to get people to disbelieve the truth.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess I always forget that, Fox News is the most watched news network in the country, close to, probably the world. It's right up there with, the major news stations that encompass the entire world. So I always forget that, I guess, that Fox News is constantly working to discredit any sort of truth or information that's out there, no matter where it's coming from, whether it's CNN or a completely down the middle reputable news source that has a great reputation. So Mounts, I want to go to you. Do we have any, again, it's still early, but do we have any sort of update, anything to look at? Have they called Kentucky yet?
Actually, well, it depends on what website you look at. They have Fox News has called Kentucky for Trump, but they've also called Virginia for Biden already. So now if that's
at 7:15, wow,
it's 13% of the votes, 17% of the votes in Kentucky, but the numbers look close.
Are we noticing anything different from 2016 to today?
I can tell you, in Kentucky, Hillary only won 2 counties, and she's winning in Biden's winning in 5 or 6 right now, and it's way closer than
it was.
Trump won with 62.5% of the votes, or 60, and Hillary had 37. Right now, it's 55-42, and the McConnell race is deadlocked. It keeps switching back and forth. It's like 100 votes every time it updates or refreshes. It's like 1,000 votes different right now, but McConnell's winning this time. But
And
Yes,
that's
like
going
going
back.
back and forth.
So it's close
Right.
as
yeah.
of right now.
Right.
But again,
And
that's 13% of the vote.
yeah,
counted?
17%.
17.
So now Florida's starting to trickle in. South Carolina's trickling in. Trump's leading pretty big in South Carolina, but they just closed. So who knows how that's going. But as of right now, Biden's up in Florida by a couple thousand votes.
Really?
Yeah, so
But-
that's interesting.
God, I'm gonna barf.
Yeah.
They were talking a lot about Florida on the news today on the coverage, the early coverage, talking about how the mail-in vote was heavily from registered Democrats, but the early vote was heavily Republican registered.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
they're saying it's going to be the opposite, or like instead of Trump getting a huge, and it's because Florida counts their mail-in ballots so quickly, depending on where it is and where the support is coming from, party-wise, they're saying it could be the opposite. Instead of Trump building a huge lead early on and the mail-in ballots getting counted later, and eventually Biden coming back and taking over, they're saying like the exact opposite could happen. Democrats could take a big lead. And with the early votes being counted and then favoring registered Republicans and in-person voting today, like today voting, probably favoring, so it could close the gap. So Biden could take an early lead and Florida could close that gap Republican-wise.
Well, and I can say with the sleeper, Kanye has 887 votes in Kentucky.
Oh my God, I forgot about Kanye.
So, and Joe Jurgensen has 4,000. She has 1% of the votes.
JoJo, which my God, can we like if we're gonna have this third party candidate discussion, if we're really gonna push to,
Can we not have her?
Can we please get somebody that's qualified? Gary Johnson is a raging idiot, and he got 5% of the vote last election cycle. Like, come on, can we at least run somebody that is intelligent, smart, and aware of the issues? Like. Maybe the reason why we only have two candidates is because there are only two candidates.
No, there's no way that's true.
Oh, well, then why can't we find one in the third party?
Because there's the Republicans and the Democrats have such a grip on it, and especially with Citizens United, as we already discussed, that any legitimate third party person would have to run as a Democrat or a Republican in order to even get on the ballot. So the ones that are actually even worth it, like a Bernie Sanders and AOC in the future, they won't run on third party because they know they can't win that way because the system's rigged against them.
Look, the change is, especially in government, is slow. It's painful. It's tedious. If you're truly for a third party, you have to do your part. You have to get out there and vote for the candidate that's most likely to open the door for a third party, and that is not Donald Trump.
Right? No, it's not.
Joe Biden, and maybe the difference is slight, but there is a slight difference. And like Leah said, I've said it many times before. If you want a third party candidate, demand that they run under the two party system right now. Put their platform on display during the primaries, win the primaries, and then push for legislation that allows for a third party. I don't understand why people are so against that. I don't.
As a long-standing former Green Party member, Jill Stein 2012 was probably our best bet, but after that. But now that
wasn't horrible.
I switched to the Democrats to vote for Obama to beat Hillary, and I've stuck with that ever since. So
yeah, well, we have some time left here. What do you guys think? Like, no matter what happens tonight, let's start with the Republican Party. Let's say Trump loses. What happens after that? Because I'm a Bill Maher fan. I don't agree with everything he said, but I like how he's difficult. He can kind of just tell it. He can look at a liberal and tell it to their face, like, look. This is the truth, man. Like the fact of the matter is Trump could run again. And everybody says, well, once you lose, you don't have a chance. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Trump can run again. And if he does, he will win. He
will win the Republican.
He will win the Republican primary. if he runs again. So what is after, what comes after this if Trump loses for the Republican Party? What do you think, Leah?
Oh God!
You can't run. You can't run for president from a jail cell, though.
There's no way he's getting locked up.
Well,
I don't see that coming. I mean, that would be amazing.
I hope that he gets locked up, Jordan. I'm with you. I hope, and hopefully there's these sealed indictments that are just waiting for him and they serve him January 21st. New York, you have to come through with something, please.
Yeah.
I think Q's working on that for you, though, Jeff. I think he's got the
Q's behind it.
Oh yeah.
But let's assume that he doesn't go to jail.
Okay, let's assume he doesn't go to jail. What's next for Trump or the
Republican just the Republican Party? Do you think he runs again? If not, what's their future?
So if he can run again, yes, I think he runs again. And I agree with you. I think he would win. But especially keep in mind too that if 4 years from now, Kamala is the vice president and she runs, that's going to bring out all the misogynistic racists that love them some Donald Trump. And they're going to love to put him up against a black female. They're going to love to do that. So yes, I think he tries to run again. Unless somehow the country heals in some way. I don't know who is to step up and try to take that leadership role and fix everything that is broken in that party in this country. But it would take a really strong person. Like I could see maybe a Paul Ryan, but I don't think he has it in him. He's not gonna. Yeah, well, I'm just thinking their way, not my way.
Yeah.
But he's somebody that I think could maybe be like I wasn't a total Trump dick sucker. And try to fix the party and run. But I think Trump runs again. If he doesn't go to jail, that's what I think the party stays exactly how they are. They came out of the closet, and I don't think they're going back in.
Right. Paul Ryan, though, too, I think he maybe had a future, but when he came out with that healthcare plan, and it was 3 pages in a fucking binder that you would hand in, it was like a 7th grade report.
Yeah, but Republicans don't care about that.
And they celebrated. And John McCain came out and just went.
Yeah,
there went all his power. He completely emasculated him.
Yeah.
So, Alex, you're next. What do you think? What do you think is next for the Republican Party if Trump loses?
Yeah, I think it depends how Trump loses. If he and also short term versus long term. If he gets his butt handed to him, I'm talking 350 plus electoral votes, 8 to 10 percentage points in the popular vote, all that good stuff. I can see a certain segment of the party just cutting and running from him, just wringing their hands and say, you know what? I went along to get along with them, didn't want to ruffle anyone's feathers, but you know what? We're beyond that. Or who knows? Maybe he somehow keeps a hold on the party because, whether you like it or not, within the Republican Party, the guy's got a 90+% approval rating with Republican voters. So I don't think voters are going to flee from him they're not just going to run away before Christmas or anything like that. Projecting a handful of years ahead of time, 4 years is a lifetime. I mean, if I think we all can attest that 1 year is a lifetime in 2020 time.
Yeah.
So, I don't buy this whole notion that if Donald Sr. loses or, whatever, essentially that Donald Trump Jr. is the next person in line or anything like that. I mean, I understand that's just nonsensical next step kind of stuff like that. Yeah, of course, he should just be the next man up. But there's a handful of senators that are already angling for this. I think Ben Sass a couple weeks ago, he totally leaked a phone call with constituents saying how on the call he was saying how Trump, cozies up to dictators and racists and bigots and all that stuff. And that's totally you know why that got leaked? Because Ben Sass is kind of looking forward to 4 years from now. Mm-hmm. He wants to run too. Tom Cotton from Arkansas, who quite honestly I think of all the short list names, I think he's the scariest in my opinion, but also Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri and a handful of others. Nikki Haley's been bandied about.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. But, I think there's a big potential for a in the wilderness time period, but let's remember that nature abhors a vacuum, especially a power vacuum. And that's what happened, essentially for the entire 8 years of Obama, the Republican Party, the power vacuum was filled by media personalities. It was the Tucker Carlsons, the Glenn Becks, the Laura Ingrams, the Rush Limbaugh.
Great point.
Of the
Yeah.
world. It was not, who was the big thought leader? It sounded like Rand Paul was like the genius Wonderkin boy. I mean, Paul Ryan, they tried to make him out to be too, but I mean, that guy couldn't, like Leo was saying, he put a proposal out for healthcare reform. Things like 3 pages, probably double space and a giant cover page just to pad the whole thing.
And not front and back either.
So if Trump loses resoundingly, well, I think there's going to be an in the wilderness time where that vacuum is going to be filled by someone. And I would say at first, right off the top of my head, maybe Tucker Carlson for the time being.
Oh my God!
I mean, I hate to think of it, but like Rush Limbaugh, he just announced his cancer is it's terminal. He's stopping treatment and all that sort of stuff.
Bye, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to the Limbaugh family there on that one.
Yeah, don't forget about Shapiro.
Yes,
too.
Exactly. Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, all these people who they can't even make it on television, but they have a few million clicks a day or weeks or whatever like that. That's look at people like that to fill this power vacuum. Who's going to fill the void, all that good stuff. And by the way, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I don't know that if Kamala Harris is the vice president in 2024, I don't know that she automatically gets the nomination, though, for the Democrats. I think there's a lot of other people out there that would love to get into it, and I don't know that she's going to be outright in a commanding position to clear the field. So, but then again, that's 4 years out, and that's a lifetime away.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see, to have two primaries from the major parties going on, similar to, you remember we were making fun of in 2016. We were making fun of Republicans because there was 100 people running, and then 4 years later, we're making fun of Democrats because there's 100 people running. Yeah. To have two parties having that type of primary right at the same time, when was the last time that happened? It's that would be.
Yeah, and just to remind people, for the 2008 election cycle, for the presumptive frontrunners at the beginning of the 2008 cycle were Hillary Clinton and Rudy Giuliani.
Think about that.
Nomination in 2008. Neither. So, the world, a whole lot can happen in just a short amount of time.
Yeah. Mounts, what about you? What do you think is next for the Republican Party if Donald Trump leaves? Or Donald Trump loses?
Short and sweet. I don't think Donald Trump will run again. I don't think he has any interest in being president if he loses tonight. That's all I have to say about that. I think. I don't think he has any. Even if it's close, I don't think he has any
interest in being president if he wins either. But
right. Well,
he is trying to stay out of jail.
He doesn't. No, I think he wants to be king. I don't think Donald.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be president. He wants to
be king.
Right. He wants to be king of Mar-a-Lago and oversee his disciples and people.
No, I think he likes being the president. I think he just wants to turn it into a monarchy. I think he wants ultimate rule. I don't think he just wants to be a rich king. I think he likes the power.
Yeah, of course he likes the power. Jordan, what about you? What do you think? What happens to the Republican Party?
I think if Trump loses, like I said, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm confident that he's going to go to jail or go to prison. But I can almost guarantee, based on what I've read, that there are sealed indictments waiting for him, particularly out of the Southeastern District of New York, or not Southeast, out of the Southern District of New York, for tax evasion and tax fraud and a whole bunch of other things. Now, as far as it goes with the Republican Party, I've been hearing, Alex said about Ben Sasse coming out with, a pretty scathing indictment of Trump. Honestly, I think that's the undercurrent of the entire party right now. I think they are hoping that Trump loses. And it sets up an interesting dynamic because what I could see happening is something similar to what happened in 1898 with Teddy Roosevelt and the advent of the Bull Moose Party,
Yeah.
where he didn't get the Republican nomination, or I think the Democratic nomination maybe at the time. I can't remember. I think it was Republican though. And he basically said, "Fuck you, I'll create my own party."
Yeah.
And I could see Trump doing something like that because it puts him in that center, that king seat, like Leah was talking about. Like he wants to be king. What better way to do that after you lose an election than to create your own political party?
Oh my
And
God,
sit at the helm
genius.
and have his family run it, and it could be like the Trump crime family syndicate political party or something like that. But I honestly think that there is no way in hell that the RNC is going to let him run, considering who the RNC chairperson is, Ronna McDaniel, who is
I just lost my internet.
I don't know.
Anybody?
know.
Mitt Romney's daughter.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I don't think the RNC.
Yeah.
I don't think the RNC. I think the RNC is smart enough to know that if they let Trump run again after losing, that they're going to lose the entire party.
You think?
Absolutely. I don't think that they could recover from that. Like Trump has a lot of like support among people, but unfortunately, people are dumb sometimes.
Right.
And I think the leaders of the Republican Party can see that this is like a blip on the radar of American politics. Like this is an upheaval that came at the right time with the wrong things happening, and it just was a complete clusterfuck of everything that is antithetical to like the national, like our national pride, right? Like what America is. And I don't think that, once he goes away and isn't given the spotlight every day forever, I think you're going to see a lot of his public support dwindle. And I don't think the Republican Party is going to come back from that. And I honestly think he's going to be drowned completely in a legal morass for the next 3 or 4 years, because of everything that him being in the public spotlight has brought up. Not to mention what could be coming to him if a Senate is turned blue.
Well, yeah.
Don't forget about that too.
Yeah.
My question now, you brought up an interesting dynamic question. What happens if Mitch McConnell gets elected? People like the Mitch McConnells who have been, drinking at his TEET for the past 4 years. What happens to them when Trump is not elected? What do you think happens to their careers?
Not a damn thing.
Yeah,
No, nothing?
I think it would depend on if we win the Senate back. If we win the Senate back, there's not a whole lot Mitch McConnell can do.
Right.
But if they keep the Senate, Mitch McConnell is still the most powerful person in Washington because he won't bring anything to the floor that Joe Biden wants to do.
And the question is, though, do they continue to be these extreme, like agreeing with the things that Trump agrees with and kind of fanning the flames, or do they try to go back to their regular Republican?
No, it's a good question. Mitch McConnell, his whole purpose in life is to take all of our money and give it to the richest people in the world,
right?
So that they give it back to him and keep him in power and gut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's all. That's all he wants to do. And he will agree to anything. Whoever's the face of the Republican Party, in this case it's Trump, he will agree with them up and down the ballot as long as that they're willing to do those things, which Trump is. He said it. So my prediction, I'm going to be the asshole here. My prediction is Trump is going to start campaigning the January 21st.
Trump is going to start campaigning tomorrow. Like, win or lose, I think he starts tomorrow.
Right. Now, if he goes to jail, that's great. But I have this feeling that he's not going to go to jail. He'll get out of it. He'll weasel his way out of it, and he'll start running. And you guys are probably more right than I am, Jordan and Alex Mounts. But I think Jordan or Alex mentioned it, that he could start his own political party. I think that's probably the most likely outcome. But I am afraid of a Trump dynasty. I'm afraid of Don Jr. Look, people love Don Jr. Like the Trump supporters love Don Jr.
Not what they do, Daddy, though.
Well, I don't know about that. Next best thing, the closest thing, Donald Trump is going to be around forever. They need someone to carry the torch.
He's such a crappy knockoff of his dad, though.
Well,
it's just not the real deal, it's new Coke versus classic Coke,
Yeah, but
on the shelf.
If it's that or a Ben Sass, the Trump supporters are going to pick Don Jr.
Yeah,
they just are, because
he decides to tweak some rules for the primary system and make sure that that some people can't just run away with it, because Donald Trump did not win. He was not winning primaries he was not getting a majority in the primaries. It's just the way the Republican primaries are structured, is that the largest vote getter gets
winner takes all. Yeah, winner takes all. Yeah.
So he ultimately, once they got to the convention, he had claimed a majority of delegates, but he only got like 42% of all the votes cast in the primary. And if they tweak the rules and make a couple changes, then you won't have somebody be able to glide to victory like that.
Yeah, like I said, you're probably right about all that stuff. But again, I've seen all of our norms just completely crushed throughout the past 4 years. So people would say, Donald Trump would be like, I'm going to do this. And people are like, well, you can't do that. And then 3 days later, he's like, well, I did it. And we're all like, what the fuck?
Never say never.
Right. So, I just don't trust him not to. The dude's a narcissist. He's a piece of shit. Of course, he's going to start campaigning and run again and start his own news network. And everybody's going to, everybody that supports him now is going to believe it. So I think if he does happen to run again, if he can get by the blockade of the RNC, I think he will win in a primary, and it'll be another close election.
I don't think he's going to do that, though, because I don't think he has the money to do that.
Right.
Well, that's true. He is, on paper, he's kind of broke.
Well, and especially because, like I said, he's going to be tied up in legal battles for a lot of this stuff, man. You think that it's going to go away. It's really not. The kind of like you said, do I think he's going to end up in prison? No. But is he going to be forever? Is he going to be tied up in legal battles? Yeah, absolutely. And are some of his assets going to possibly be seized? Yeah, they are. And are we going to find out that he's $400 million in debt to some Russian oligarchs? Maybe, stuff like that. Chance. I don't think he has the money. There are already whisperings among a lot of people that he only ran for president to save his business empire, to get free publicity. And then he just won and was like, oh shit. How did I do that? So,
it's still under audit for like a decade too.
Right.
The IRS is still auditing his ass and will forever until the day he dies.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to mention they're talking about Florida on ABC right now. I have it on mute. For what it's worth, 66% of the vote is expected in. I don't know if that means it's expected in tonight or it's in currently, but Biden currently leads 50-49.
Oh my God.
It's very close. A lot of blue counties, though, compared to 2016, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So if someone could take a look at that and maybe give us some more detail, that would be great. It's still up there, yeah.
The giant touchscene map like they have on all the
I would love to. Yeah, someday. So right now it's 3.9 million to roughly 3.8 million votes in counted. So again, for what it's worth, and listen, I don't remember Florida coming in that quickly in 2016. A lot of this is filling in very quickly because it's not even 8:00 yet.
Right. I think we knew Trump was president before midnight in 2016.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. It was late, but not that late in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think it was officially determined. It wasn't permanently called, but it was determined right around midnight because I remember. Yeah. I remember it specifically because it was when I was still drinking and I passed out and woke up at 12:15 and was like, holy shit, Trump actually won? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah. No, it was, I remember because it was, Jordan's right. It wasn't officially called, but I remember.
Yeah. You knew it.
I could hear the tone in the voices of the people talking about it. There's no chance for Hillary to come back here anymore. Florida was the final. If she won Florida, there was a glimmer of hope. But every county that came in was like Trump is crushing her in the counties that he's supposed to win. But she's not performing well, and then she's underperforming in like Miami-Dade and Orlando and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, I have it on mute here. I don't know exactly what they're saying, but for what it's worth, 66% of the vote, whatever that means, is expected. I don't know if that's expected by some point tonight or it's currently in. Biden has a slim lead. Florida's always close. It's always a 1% state. We're going to be shitting our pants over that one. But again, like I said, if Biden wins Florida, I don't think there's a chance for him to win. If he wins Florida and Ohio, like Alex brought up, I don't think there's a chance for him to win because I don't think he can hold on to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Even if Trump wins 2 out of those 3 and not Florida, and Biden takes one of them, Trump is screwed. It's over. Okay, so let's talk real quick here while the rest of our team, Mounts and Krista, are kind of looking into some maybe the details of Florida for us. Let's talk about big, bold predictions. I'll start. I think Biden wins Texas. Leah?
Cool. I think Mitch McConnell loses. That's
I mean, God, fingers fucking crossed.
Yeah, right.
That turtle motherfucker. If I don't have to look at him another day in my life.
But big bold prediction. I think Trump takes all the swing states.
All the swing. You think he's going to take all the swing states? So he's going to take Florida,
Bold.
Florida, North Carolina. You think
Uh-huh.
he's going to take Pennsylvania,
I do.
Ohio,
Yeah.
Michigan, and Wisconsin?
Yes.
That would be that would be a huge electoral college win, and I think he would have to win the popular vote that way.
I think the only
to win all of those.
I think the only way he wins. I think Pennsylvania is a maybe. And it's only because of Biden being from here. I'm telling you, I have a very negative outlook on this. I, like Jordan, think that people are stupid. And I think they're going to vote for Trump. That's what I think.
All right. Well, that's scathing review of a potential Biden report. But it is a bold.
And I pray I'm wrong. I'm praying I'm wrong. But
me too. I've suddenly become religious.
Right? Me too.
Jordan, do you have a bold prediction for tonight?
I don't know. I think, like you, I think the Texas thing is legit. I think that could absolutely happen. But my bold prediction is kind of, I don't know who might have said it, but I think he loses the entire Rust Belt. I think Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania are all going to turn blue this year.
And he can have Florida then, because he can't win.
Yeah.
He can't win by losing all those.
And Alex mentioned that before, that he won by a razor thin margin in most of those states. I think PA was 44,000 out of like 8 million votes.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was like 10,000 out of I think like 6 or 7 million votes. So it was like,
Michigan was about 15,000. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I think all 4 of those go Biden.
Krista, I'm going to add you to the stream real quick. Is this are these called? Are they making a call here, or these are just update? Because I see George on here right now. You're muted.
These are called, and actually, since I just put this up, this is a little out of date even still. And the Florida thing, that was 73% already counted at the moment that I looked it up.
So did they call Florida, or they're just
No, have not called Florida yet.
Okay, but did they call Georgia?
No, it's Democratic leaning as of right now.
Okay.
Virginia just switched to blue, and they called it.
They did call it. Okay.
They called Virginia. Okay.
They just called it.
So the light blue is Democratic lead. The dark blue is if it's dark red or blue, it's called. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
But Trump is still leading in Virginia. But
Yep.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen that before a million times.
Oh yeah.
So nothing really surprising here, except Georgia is a little bit surprising that it's still. I mean, normally that would be red the whole night.
Yeah.
And I'm getting this
so-
information from the Associated Press.
Okay, great stuff. Kellyanne Conway is on ABC News right now. I want to break my computer screen. But anyway, so where were we? I would think I interrupted Jordan. But did you have anything to finish up there with? You said you were mentioning that the whole Rust Belt you think Biden's going to carry.
Well, not Indiana, obviously, but I
No,
think
right,
there's
right.
I think there's a really good chance that Ohio and PA are going to go blue. And maybe not Ohio, but even if Biden can take Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and PA, that even with Texas and Florida, that really makes it dicey for Trump.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. And you're right there. I don't have faith.
Mounts, do you have a bold prediction here?
Howie Hawkins pulls off a amazing upset, wins the president 2020. He's the Green Party candidate this year.
Mm.
No, I believe that Biden's going to win all the swing states. The opposite of what you believe, Leah.
Wow.
I think last election, the majority of undecided voters were just like, well, there's no way Trump could win, and didn't vote. I think that their eyes were opened.
Oh, you think they were so confident in Hillary?
I think that's why Pennsylvania lost by such a slim margin, and everything was so close because all the I've talked about this before, the Bernie or bust that were like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils because there's no way Trump's going to win, and he did. So I think that
Not taking it for granted this time.
yeah, I think along with that and how alienating Trump could be, like either you love him or you hate him, and I think he had enough time to rub enough people in the Republican Party wrong, but I could be wrong about that. And also, Mitch McConnell is pulling away, so don't get your hopes up on that.
Kevin, it's hilarious.
Right, always looking for a drinking game. I'm with you, Kevin. Well, if it gets late tonight and things start to shift here a little bit from the early numbers, because what we're looking at right now, it's not necessarily surprising, but it's fingers crossed if it holds, we're good. There's a lot of votes counted in Florida, and the reason why they can't call it is because it's so close. A lot of counties haven't even started reporting yet, and what happened last year, you saw, is a lot of the very small rural counties would trickle in. So as they explained it to the people watching, it was 30,000 votes for Trump here, 30,000 votes for Trump here. And all of a sudden you start to see those come in and they overtake. So right now he's up by like a
30,000.
How much is it?
30,000 votes.
In Florida?
Like, yeah, in Florida.
That's it. So
49.6 to 49.4.
Oh, so it's already tightening. So you got to see those votes coming in heavily from Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and the rural ones have to tighten it. So let's go to Alex. What's your big bold prediction for tonight?
I got two for you.
Two.
So one, I think the Democrats are going to retake the Senate. It might not be decided tonight because a couple of the Senate races, I know at least one of. So right now in Georgia, there's actually two Senate races. One's for a full term. The other one's for the remainder of a term for a senator who he departed due to health issues earlier this year. Anyway, so that may not ultimately be decided until sometime in January. But that is one bold prediction I have for you. I think the Democrats will retake the U.S. Senate. And also, I believe more than one pro-cannabis referendum bill is going to pass. New Jersey
I like both of those.
New Jersey has one on the ballot today. And as I think the most recent numbers that I saw was about 65% supporting it in the state of New Jersey, which should that happen, that is definitely going to get the ball rolling throughout the rest of the Northeast in terms of legalizing cannabis for adult recreational use. Not for the kids or anything like that, but think of it this way. It's just like when the drinking age was 18 in one state and 21 in the other. I have some of my parents' friends told me how, like, way back when we used to just drive through the Lehigh Valley, over the river, go get the beer, and come back.
Yep.
New Jersey, stuff like that.
To New Jersey,
And New York, Pennsylvania, the states of Pennsylvania and New York are not going to allow all their citizens to go across state lines and lose all that tax revenue for that. But also, I know Arizona has a legalization bill on the ballot today, as do a few other states. I don't know them all, but my prediction is at least more than one state will pass a pro-cannabis bill today by a referendum.
That would be great.
that would be amazing.
Really would. That's one of the biggest changes this country needs. And just to elaborate on my bold prediction, Texas had 9 million votes in 2016, and their early voting, mail-in voting, has exceeded 10 million plus. You have cities like Houston and Austin that are still going out in person and voting, which are very liberal cities. So I think if this is if we're gonna flip Texas, this is the year to do it, and that just throws a whole wrench in the not only the Trump campaign and world chances of winning, but it throws a whole wrench in the Republican outlook for the next decade. It shows that Texas is possible; it is reachable.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any updates before we call this segment? We take a little break here until about 9 o'clock. Okay, so we have
Leah. Just so you know, according to CNN, Biden's only leading by 8,000 votes in Florida. So a little nail biter.
Oh God! Stop telling me these things. You really want me to barf on air, don't you?
Yeah. This is Florida might not be called till close to 100% of the votes are counted. Honestly,
my God.
because it's so close. Like for those of you, maybe you don't follow elections that closely, that may be really interested in this one for the first time. Like the reason why something like a Virginia, and anybody can jump in here if I'm saying something incorrect, but the reason like a state like Virginia, which is generally blue as far as the presidential race goes, it might look red at first, and they can even call it when it's leaning red, is because they can assume that based on the certain votes being counted and the percentage of them being counted in the major cities that tend to go blue, that always go blue, they can kind of calculate using math that's way beyond my understanding that basic addition and subtraction really. They can tell that by the time all these are counted 100%, Biden's going to be way ahead. So that's why they're calling it, even though it might look like currently Donald Trump has a lead there. It's not, that's not the case. It's definitely not going to end up that way. So, so what we're seeing here is we have 4 states called: Vermont, no surprise; West Virginia, Kentucky, both for Donald Trump, and Virginia is called for Joe Biden. So nothing
Vermont.
too surprising. I said Vermont. Yeah, Vermont's Joe Biden too. So, and we have 3 leaning blue and 3 leaning red. I'm really hoping that North Carolina comes through for us too.
Ohio's leaning blue right now.
That's early though, right?
Yeah, that's pretty early.
It's all still early. Yeah. But we have about 6 minutes until a huge group of states close, including Pennsylvania. So we're gonna learn a lot in the next hour, and then we're gonna come back at about 9 o'clock, and we're gonna be with you for
ever.
Yeah, hopefully until it's called.
No sleep till Biden, baby.
Right.
I love that.
I've had so many technical difficulties these past couple days. But where was I? Oh yeah. So around 9 o'clock, we're going to come back and we're going to stay with you for a good 3 hours. Anybody have anything else before we sign off?
Nope.
Hey, just so you know, everybody, if you're still out there and you line up in the next 5 minutes, if you get in line before 8 o'clock, they have to let you vote in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Yep.
Do not go walking away. If you are in line by 8 o'clock, they cannot turn you away from voting.
7:59. As long as you're in line by 7:59, you're good.
7:59 and 59 seconds.
Yeah.
You still got time. Get your vote in.
Right. Most likely your polling place is nearby. Get there. Vote. Exercise your voice. It's the only way to truly affect change.
Or have an opinion.
or be able to have an opinion. And you know what? If you want to argue on Facebook for the next 4 years, you better fucking vote. If you don't, you have no right to argue with me or Jordan or Alex. You don't really vote or argue online that much, but definitely me and Jordan. You can't argue with us unless.
No, I just prefer to tell people they're idiots to their face.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
Jordan, you have anything else?
Nope. I'll probably be back
Okay,
at 9.
good. Alex, I don't know if you can make it back at 9, but if you can, wonderful. We'll have a couple other people on. Sterner will be with us. Justin Everett.
I'm old. You have to understand. I have to do something, or I'll fall asleep in my recliner. Like I gotta be up and get stimulation.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you guys staying awake for the whole thing? I mean, obviously, if we don't have an answer by 3 in the morning, it's not worth staying up at that point. But are you staying up as long as you can? Try and hoping for an answer.
And guys, just tune in. I am going to get Leah to puke on camera. So
he's gonna stress me out so badly. He's going to start like lying about the numbers. Like Biden's going to have a huge lead. And he's going to be like, Trump's up by exactly 12 votes in Pennsylvania right now.
I'm not like all the other liberal news media. I don't lie. All right.
Okay.
Mounts Media
USA.
Honest all the time.
All right. Got it.
Okay. So on that note, we are going to let everybody go. I want to thank Jordan. I want to thank Alex for being here, and we'll see you guys at 9. Take a break, take a nap, crack open a beer, make yourself a stiff drink, open a bottle of wine, smoke some weed, whatever you need to do to get your minds right, prepare yourself for a long haul and a late night. Do what you need to do, and we'll see you back very, very soon. Until then, take care of yourselves. And we'll see you soon.